Kính thưa đại chúng,
Dear respected Sangha,
nhiều năm về trước,
many
hội
years
có được
ago,
tình cờ nghe
I got a chance to listen
được đọc về
or read
cái mô tả của các cái hiểu biết của các nhà khoa học về
about the understanding of the
về cái thế giới bên ngoài.
science world, about our natural world.
Có một câu như thế này:
There's a line
cái vỗ
that
cánh của một
goes
con
like
bướm có
this:
thể là
the
cái nguyên nhân dẫn đến một
wings
cái cơn
of a
bão ở tận bờ
butterfly,
bên kia địa cầu.
just the movement of the wings of the butterfly,
Chắc chắn là cũng
bring
có nhiều
about a
người nghe
storm in the other side of the
cái mô tả
universe
đó.
or world.
Nó rất là
I'm
hay.
sure a lot of you have also heard
Nhưng mà lúc
that
đó hội
before,
không có
and
hiểu
it's
biết
really
nhiều.
wonderful, but at that
Nghe
time,
vậy chứ mà
I didn't
không
understand
hiểu được
much
thực
about
sự
it,
nó là giá trị như thế
and
nào.
I didn't understand the value of it.
Nhiều năm sau,
Many years
khi
later,
mà mình có cái nhận thức nó mới hơn,
when I had a newer way of understanding,
chấp nhận nó được một cách
I got
sâu
to
sắc hơn.
accept it or
Nhưng đồng
recognize it in
thời
a
nó cũng có
more
một cái ý
deeper
nghĩ
way.
vui nó nhảy lên.
Alongside, there was an interesting
Thế nếu như một cái
thought
vỗ
that
cánh của
came
cái
up.
con bướm
For example,
nó
if
là một trong những
the
nguyên nhân,
wings of the
cái tác
butterfly
động
is one
làm
of
ra
the
cái cơn bão
factors
lớn
that
ở
cause
xa
a
xôi đâu
huge
đó.
storm
Bây
elsewhere,
giờ
far
thì
away,
mình thử bảo cái
then
con bướm nó vỗ
what
cánh thêm một
about
cái hay vài cái
we
nữa thì
ask
bão
the
nó có tan
butterfly
không?
to flip its wings or flap its wings again? Will the storm
Bão bây giờ nhiều
vanish?
quá rồi.
Because there's so many storms happening now.
Nó gây ra khổ đau nhiều quá rồi.
And it's brought a lot of suffering, enough suffering.
Cái hiểu biết đó của các nhà
This
khoa học thật sự
understanding
là rất là
of
đáng
the
giá.
science world, it's really valuable.
Nhưng mà từ thời xa xưa,
But
cái
from
thấy của
a
đạo
long
cũng có những cái thấy
time ago,
tương tự
from
như
the
vậy.
time of the Buddha, there was also that way of
Cái vỗ
seeing
cánh của
already
con bướm nó là một cái loại năng lượng.
how just the movement of the wings of the butterfly is
Nó
also
tác động
a
vào những
source of
cái việc
energy
xảy ra trong thế gian mình.
and
Nhưng
has
mà những cái tâm thức của chúng ta
affected
nó cũng là một
the
loại năng lượng.
things that happen
Nó
around the
cũng tác động
world.
rất là
And
sâu sắc
our
vào cái thế
mind,
gian,
our
vào cái cuộc
consciousness
sống
is
này.
also does the same
Trong
thing,
cái
also
tuệ giác của Đạo Bụt
affects
từ
the
thời xa
world.
xưa có cái câu mô tả
The insight
nhất
of the
niệm
Buddha's
biến tam
time,
thiên.
there's a insight.
Niệm là cái ý niệm,
Nhất nghiệp
cái tâm
biến
hành
tam
của tâm
thiên
thức chúng ta.
means
Một
one karma
cái tâm hành,
can
một cái loại năng lượng
transform
được sản sinh trong
something when
nó cũng có thể tác động đến hàng ngàn cái thế giới khác nhau.
can transform the three realms.
Và còn đi xa hơn thế nữa.
And if we go even further,
những vị tổ có cái sự gặp sâu sắc, cảm nhận sâu sắc, họ còn khẳng định
the
chất lượng
Buddhas
của cái loại
at that
niệm đó
time,
nó cũng
they
ảnh hưởng
even practice more deeply the
đến tận vô
effects
cùng.
of that
Tam thiên thế giới nó chỉ là
karma
một
that
con
we
số ước
do
lệ thôi, tại
can
vì không ai ước có
affect
thể khẳng định được là
infinite
cái
realms.
vỗ cánh
Even
của
though Tam
con
Ting
bướm
means
kia
the
nó
three
đã tác động
realms,
đến
but really
bao
we
xa,
don't
bao
know how far
cái niệm
it
của
can
chúng ta nó
affect,
cũng vậy.
how can spread.
Không ai
Our
có thể
karma is
khẳng
the
định
same
được
thing.
rằng
No
nó
one
đã đi được
can
đến bao xa.
say how
Nhưng
far
mà
that
cái sự
karma
kiện đó
will
nó cũng như
cause
vậy.
an effect to how
Một niệm
long.
thiện nó cũng có
And
thể
our
biến thành những cái tác động
mind is the
rất
same thing. A
tuyệt vời
thought,
sau đó.
it can also have an
Nhưng đồng thời
effect
một cái
for
niệm
how
bất
many
thiện
years
cũng
later we
vậy.
don't know.
Nó cũng có thể gây ra những cái
And
tác hại lớn không kém.
alongside, it can also cause harm.
Cái thế giới của chúng ta bây giờ nó
Our
phức tạp
current
hơn
world
rất là
today,
nhiều.
it's
Và
a
càng
lot
ngày
more
nó
complicated,
càng phức tạp hơn thôi.
and as the day
Điều
goes
tốt
by,
đẹp
it
nó vẫn
becomes
còn.
more complicated.
Nhưng những
The
cái
beautiful aspects
bất
of
thiện
life are still
nó
there,
cũng nhiều hơn rất là nhiều.
but the unfortunate
Nếu
events
những ai đã tu
are
tập
also a lot more than before.
khá lâu với siêu sẽ có
Those who
thể
have
còn nhớ
practiced with Thai for a
cái tuyên
while
cáo năm 2000
can probably know about the Manifesto 2000
Manifesto năm 2000
declaration.
ấy. Có thể những thế hệ lớn mới
Perhaps
còn nhớ đến.
the more elder generation can remember that.
Cái ý tưởng
The
trong cái văn bản
idea
đó, trong
of
cái tuyên ngôn
this
đó, tuyên cáo
declaration,
đó, nó không phải từ nguyên thủy của sông, nhưng sông
it's
là một
not
trong người đóng góp để
founded by Thai,
làm
but
ra nó.
Thai was one of the contributors to that manifesto.
Cái ý tưởng lớn nhất trong đó là thực tập
The greatest idea in there
hòa bình và bất bạo động.
is practicing
Và cái điểm
peace
hay nhất
and
là nó đã
nonviolence. The manifesto is called Creating a Culture of Peace and Nonviolence. So the leaders, the big organizations, UNESCO at that time, they were looking into how to care for the big issues in the world. So there needs to be an outreach of hands holding together to create something like that, not any individual in particular. And with Thai's insight, he saw that it will have a great impact on our current generation. But unfortunately, or sadly, in that intention of wanting to practice of nonviolence for 10 years as a call for peace, a quarter of a decade that passed by, we saw that perhaps it didn't succeed, because we see that now there's more war, and in fact it's even worse than before. And why is that? Our aspiration, we know which direction is the right direction of many types of worlds, of many types of people in the world, and yet in the end it didn't manifest, it didn't succeed. In the past, when there were big conflicts, worldly issues, world wars, it caused the differences in different generations and created different consciousness way of thinking of different generations. But now it seems like that difference, that gap of difference is almost diminished. It's not the cause anymore. But so why is it still happening? For us here, we get to experience the peace, but in countries, in the other places, they don't have the same fortune as us. Right now, with the wars that are happening or any other world crisis, it's even between countries, neighboring countries. On many different levels. In fact, the neighboring countries should have a kind of natural communication with each other. So how did it fail so terribly that they had to use to the point of using harm as a way of interacting with each other? Even though the consciousness of the difference of generation is no longer there, but there are other reasons that are causing that war, and it is the main reason that leads to incidences in the world that we can't have an explanation for. Right now, after a few hundred years, after the development of the society, we see that our consciousness level is heightening, is improving, and we have more economic means. But at the same time, it's also a lot more issues, and it's a lot more unsettling in our mind, consciousness as well. There's a type of energy, a type of consciousness that is becoming the leading consciousness, not just in any particular culture, but also in many communities, in many types of people, in individual, which is we need to do something to help bring the most benefit for our society, for our country. But in the same environment of living, the benefits may not be enough for everyone. And once that mind that wants to take over, to take for just one type of community, then it becomes much more stronger. That mindset becomes stronger. To wanting the benefit for your own country, for your own society and family, it's not a wrong mind to have. But because of the mind of love and hatred, it can lead to a negative mindset or lead to negative impact more likely than a positive impact. And of course, it's a very natural want, a natural desire, and it's a worthy desire. However, based on that foundation, we cannot accept the ways that are creating harm or that is creating hatred and harm or others outside of our community, then it causes much more harm, especially during this period, a few years from now. This ways of thinking has been become more like a collective ways of thinking, and it's been accepted as the right way, as a natural way. If now we say, if a community or a country can share the benefits, it's gonna, to other countries or other communities, it's gonna be quite hard to convince, but it is an important step in order to live in peace and harmony with one another, because there are possible outcomes that are much greater than we can imagine. And Tai had talked a lot about how the Buddha had shared that the impacts that we create, it can cause much greater harm to the world than we think. So there's an example where there's two chickens that are in a cage, and they are arguing with each other. Oh, is this grain of corn tastier than the other corn? But two of those chickens don't know that they are in a cage to become food later on. Our environment of living, even with the climate change, it's going in a direction much greater, much deeper than we know. And just like the example of the scientist about the butterfly effect, we don't have a lot of time in order to reverse that process that is happening. It's like once it transcends another country or another place, it's impossible to reverse its direction. So living in a world like that, yet we still want to take what's for us. And eventually, some countries will start to lose its country, just like the two chickens in the cage. We're no different. We're just like them. Each war that happens, it creates disaster, not just to the lives of the people, not to the economy, but also to the external environment in a way that's very dangerous, in a way that most of us aren't aware of. For a war to happen, for a conflict within the country to happen. Then it causes a lot of over worry in everyone, and people living in poverty, and the foods that people are receiving from living poverty may not have that chance anymore. But the mindset of wanting the best for ourselves, wanting the best for our society or for our country, that mindset is so strong in the world right now, and it can
với những nước xa xôi hay những nước láng giềng.
It can be between neighboring countries or between countries far away from each other, but whichever way it is, it always leads to an outcome that is not beautiful. It's not to say that when we have the best means that we will have the best life, even with the countries that are very strong or strong in economy or and our practice. How is our practice when we are able to see that? And more than 10 years later, after the Manifesto 2000 has been presented in UNESCO, yet with Thai, even though he put all his heart into it, eventually he had to accept the truth that the world couldn't fulfill much of it, even though it's a practice of nonviolence. But then, not because of that, but Thai lost hope in the practice, in the path. Because if we just look at the negative side, there's no inspiration for us to continue the path, to contribute the beautiful elements in the world. We also don't want to make our future generation our children generation to lose hope, to lose the future. Of course, we want them to continue, no matter how much love we have. We always want for them to have the best for their future, to have a beautiful environment for them to continue on. Is that right? And that is our responsibility. Perhaps we can pretend like, oh, there's no problem, there's no issues. We get to live in an environment that is safe and at ease, and it will always be like this. But it's not like that. Because no matter how much we can have the benefits for ourselves, we can't choose or we can't control the actions of others in other countries and other societies. But with that energy that is being cultivated, it's being cultivated by other societies and other cultures. And just like the butterfly effect, that mindset that's being cultivated, that energy that's being cultivated, can also impact and affect our society, our consciousness. So, of course, there's no way to manage all of that type of energies and all the ways of mindsets that people have. In reality, it's impossible to manage. All that we can do is to look into the insights of the scientists, of those who have a deep practice, and see that our beautiful contributions, our beautiful energy that we're contributing can in fact make a difference in this world. And it will have the most benefit effect when it's in a atmosphere of practitioners together. The reason why a monk following Thai's way can easily contribute in that work is because as soon as he begins, he must choose the path to not compete with the means of living in the world. He chooses to choose a simple way of life in order to protect our mind, our consciousness. Because if once a monk also chases the mind, as everyone else, of wanting to chase the best means for oneself or for one's community, then that mindset or consciousness at that time, there's no longer purity, there's no longer brightness and wholesomeness. Of course, it is a voluntarily choice for those who want to choose the path of the Buddha. We must accept that way in order to protect ourselves. If not, that is the reason why that community
những cái lợi lạc từ thế gian chứ không phải là chủ động đi chạy đi tìm kiếm nó hoặc là nhân đôi
must accept without fighting for something, without taking action for it. We must accept that way of practice, way of living right at the beginning in order to be of service to the world and not be affected by the world that causes us to lose our purity, loses our clarity in our way of thinking and how we contribute to the world. So when we take that path, it will also be effective even for those who are lay friends choosing this way of life, or whether you're choosing another religious path. In the past, we've also seen priests in Catholic religion or Christianity, they also practice that in order to be of greater service for the world. And it must be transmitted, that way of life must be transmitted in order to continue. Because once a monk or practitioner has that mindset of wanting to take what's best for oneself, then once that happens, it will cause harm either to ourselves and others around us or to the world at large. So recently, there is a community of practitioners, even in the countries with the large Buddhist community, harm can also happen. And the point that is connecting it, why it's causing harm, is because they've lost that path. They've let go of that path of simple living. And then they choose to chase the path of desiring the best for oneself. And instead of accepting the simple way of life, lifestyle, and it happens when we don't know. It could be because they don't have that inner strength to continue on with that decision. So we need to have that inner strength in order to keep ourselves aligned on the path of wholesomeness, of simple living, in order to protect ourselves. Because once we stray away from it, then we can easily fall into that mindset of chasing the means. And whether it's in a small community or a large community, it's the same way. And then it leads to us not accepting the ways of practice that are not compassionate towards other communities or towards other countries. And it's not anyone's fault individually, but it's a collective responsibility. And when we recognize that, then it's very possible that it can give us a chance to reflect. Not necessarily need to chase along with the crowd, even though we hear a lot about it. Our love and hatred energy with one country or another, it's very present, and because of that, like the leaders, they have that strongly within them, and maybe because we can connect with them on that level, that's why we can be persuaded by the way they lead. And because of that, we can easily let go of our compassionate ways of understanding. If we have the courage to reflect and contemplate our choice, our freedom to cultivate the wholesome thoughts, the wholesome seeds, in order to heal and our wounds. And we know that this path is not easy because it's always going to be the path less traveled. But there's always a positive outcome. But if it's because of temporary failures, then we let go of the beautiful path of good deeds of wholesomeness, of compassion, then we've already failed right from the start. And the same thing, we should not walk on the path where we impose another community to follow our path, or impose our way of being onto another community. We shouldn't do that. We should just focus on our own work and contribute and be of service and offer just the beautiful seeds, the wholesome seeds, the beautiful wholesome energy, in order for wherever it can spread to then bring the effect of healing and transformation. And the community of practitioners or community of monastics, it's always going to be a small number of the collective society. But the responsibility is very great, because there's a responsibility to offer, to be of service of the highest and of compassion. So the level of success, this level of success is not only dependent on that community, but it's also dependent on our ability to let go of that mind of wanting to chase the best for our own selves or for our own families or communities, so that it is not then being easily affected by that other energy that's not wholesome. And when we have more of that type of energy, it becomes more safe, more protective for our own environment and for our own life. And we will do our best to stabilize that way of life, that way of mindset, that we will share the difficulties and in the world in order to continue to walk the path together. Because once a country is now being left on the sidelines, that country will not stand still. They will do what it needs in order to have its place in the world. And that declaration in Manifesto in 2000, it declares that each person has a right to live in its country in harmony and have a right to have enough means for its people to live in harmony by, in a way, not using violence, through nonviolence means, in order to respect each other's borders and countries. And in that way, the purpose is to prevent any worsening of harm towards the countries, towards each other. But now we can see a lot of war-torn communities, a lot of destruction happening between countries. And alongside, a lot of people can see that this is not a suitable, appropriate means. Even though right now, those who are calling for peace or calling for protection for those who are marginalized is much more harder nowadays. But not because of that we lose faith. Not because of that we lose our beautiful aspiration in our hearts or in our minds. Yesterday, the brothers had met to decide about receiving new brothers in our community of practice. And our brothers are very happy because we have the energy to receive more brothers. And especially when we make a decision, we do it very harmoniously. We also ask opinions and inputs from those who don't usually have a say. And finally, the brothers decide. And the part that I saw that was very beautiful is that we surpassed the worries about our concerns, because in the members of our new brothers, there's concerns for health and weaknesses. But in the end, the brothers accepted it all, and that was a wonderful decision. Why is that? Because in there, it shows a beautiful way of seeing, is that we're able to accept those who are not yet perfect within our community to enter our community. However, if a monk only accepts the most beautiful, the most perfect people in order to create more beautiful and more perfected people, that is then not a beautiful way of cultivating a community. It's when the community can accept those who are not yet perfect, who still have weaknesses, and in order to help them to become a better person, a more beautiful person, that then is a true service, a true contribution to the community, to the society. Because if we only accept those who are already beautiful, who are already perfect, is that then really a beautiful thing to do? No, it's when we can see, those who are not yet perfect, who are not yet beautiful, can also join our community of practice to contribute to our community of practice and in a way contribute to the world. And that then is a beautiful way of doing. Because if we then only include the perfect ones and exclude those who are not perfect, then that is not the compassionate spiritual way of compassion. And then the way of cultivation, it becomes more challenging. But that is the type of energy that we need to pay attention to more. So for those in monastic community, we also need to accept that. It doesn't mean that become a monastic, then you become perfect. No, not at all. Perhaps there's a lot of loopholes or holes in them, because it's not a ending point of perfection. It's just a starting point of transformation. If lay friends or community out there are expecting the monastics to then become perfect just by becoming a monastic, then there's no room for growth and transformation. It's not the truth of reality. So at least we're able to then make that first step of becoming on the path of transformation. We can't expect the butterfly to flip its wings a few times in order to make huge transformation, but it's ourselves. We need to flip our own wings in order so that we can have a better future ourselves. And so there are things that we need to take action, and there are things that we should not take action. And then we are worthy of living in this world. Because we have our own personal ways of contributing, and it's very true to ourselves. Even the minuscule things, even for those who may not have enough means in their way of living, they can also contribute. And it's this coming together and even in the Buddhist communities coming together at large and countries coming together at large, whether it is in a small community, whether it's from different cultures, whether it's from different religions, it still brings a wonderful positive effect because from its roots, there's compassion. The foundation is from a place of wholesomeness, is from a place of compassion. And from there, it will nourish the future generations to come. And when it goes in that direction, it will always have people who are coming in later, whether it's 20, 30 years later, they will also benefit. Like for myself, it took me maybe 20 years to understand the benefits of the Manifesto 2000, but it's never too late. So I'd like to invite all of us here, whether physically here at home or whenever you are free, please contemplate more on this. We always have a chance. We will always have support, always have the understanding of those around us. Maybe we don't know them yet. We don't know their names yet. But they're there. And once we are able to live in an environment of safeness, of protection, then we must be grateful to it. Because thanks to that environment, we're able to cultivate and create more compassionate and beautiful energies much more easier and have and practice much easier. Truthfully, I tend to go all over the place when I share about this topic because I also want to respect the ways of thinking, the ways of doing of other countries, of other cultures, but I also want to be courageous enough to share what I feel is true. But of course, I don't expect others to follow. It's just an open sharing in order to express my understanding, and hopefully it will touch upon you to inspire you to reflect and as well take your own path on it. And right now, let us be grateful for our means that it may be very tiny. Like for as a monk, we also let's say be grateful for our donations that we receive from our lay friends. That is why the life of monastic, or the life of letting go of the worldly means, it requires us to practice not having that desire of wanting something for your own self. So as a lay friend, you can also put that practice into your own worldly life. When we don't have such big desires for our own comfortable way of living in order to be happy, then it will definitely be of help for the world. Then it no longer leads to competition in order to compete for the resources of other communities. This is definitely a sensitive topic, and I'm sure not a lot of people may agree because of the mindset of wanting to have something for our own self, our own family, our own communities, our own country. And that way of thinking, it can be very easy to have. But for those who chooses the path of practice, chooses the path of monastichood, we have to go against the flow of the river in order
một niệm thiện nó làm an lành cho biết bao nhiêu thế giới. Tại vì cái năng lượng trong tâm thức chúng ta mạnh hơn của một cái con bướm một cái kia rất là nhiều.
The consciousness or the mindset of one person can in fact make a difference, can in fact make a change, just like the butterfly effect. And choose the life, choose the environment of living that is much more valuable than our own personal needs. Of course, at first, we need to have a foundation of going into the direction and the path of wholesomeness, of compassion, to prevent us from going to the path of darkness. And meanwhile, we must remind ourselves to not force our ways of thinking onto someone else and not force the other person to follow our path. Then it protects us from going into the path of darkness, and it allows us to continue on the path of wholesomeness. And we must also be aware that once a harm is done, it needs a lot of time, a long time to heal that harm, that wound. Just like our Mother Earth, the harm that we've done for our Mother Earth, it will take her a very long time to heal.
Quốc gia nào cũng vậy mà thôi, cộng đồng nào cũng vậy thì tất cả những cái điều kiện đi về hướng tốt đẹp đó nó cũng nằm
So all of the conditions that lead us in the path of beautiful, it's within our hands' reach. It's completely within our hands' reach, and it's completely from our own free will. And I invite you to experience that free will of choice. And even though it's maybe not very a joyous ride, because it's not really, a very luxurious ride or joyous ride, because it can be going against a lot of things because of that. And because maybe we may not see the effects that we would like to see right now, but that doesn't mean we should lose hope and faith in the beautiful possibilities that can come, even to our last breath in this life. And the life that we're getting to experience now is already very beautiful, so we can be grateful for that. And for myself, I don't hope for everyone to walk this path or agree, but thank you for allowing each of us to have a choice.